And finally, Republicans are the party of empire. Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex. George Orwell warned about endless war in his book 1984. Now we have both, out of control and making defense contractors rich beyond their dreams. The defense budget is $680 billion a year. We're going to spend another $100 billion on Iraq and Afghanistan. We have 700 military bases around the world now. 1.5 million active duty personnel. We spend more on our military than the next 15 countries combined. So, what are we fighting here? A lot of that military is set up to fight the Cold War. There are plenty of reasons to cut military spending by 30% and transfer that money into more progressive educational and infrastructure projects. But how about another reason? We just can't afford empire anymore. The Roman and British empires went broke by overextending militarily. I don't want to follow their example. So why does this matter? Why the focus on equality and fairness where everybody has access to a good middle-class life? Inequality is divisive, socially corrosive, and bad for business. Even a bare-knuckled, capitalist like Henry Ford realized you had to pay your workers enough money so that they could actually buy your car. He realized that with a little help from the Germans. Careful studies have shown that a stratified society leads to huge public health problems, the opposite of the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. So what is the effect of equality, the ideal of progressivism? The results are in worldwide. In more equal countries, there's less drug abuse, longer life expectancy, less mental illness, more social capital, as in trust, higher educational scores, less homicide rates, less crime and imprisonment, less infant mortality, less obesity, and lower teen birth rate. So the choice is ours. What system will provide the greatest good for the greatest amount of people? One that, in my opinion, provides for the most equality. As we've shown here, conservative values actually stoke inequality. You know, I'm a small business owner and a capitalist. The promise of America is in its opportunity, the chance to rise as high as your ability and desire will take you. The engine of that is capitalism, but the game has got to be fair. If you leave vast numbers without even the means to enter the game, then the game is rigged. If you allow an elite financial class to produce nothing to keep all of their winnings at the casino of Wall Street after they've busted the economy, then the game is rigged. If you don't invest in broadening economic opportunity for all, then you sell the American dream down the river and weaken the country in the process. Progressives want not a handout, but a return to a level playing field. Do we want to become a nation of gated communities? A nation where the elderly die without health care and children are malnourished and homeless? We're heading there, and it's not pretty. Progressives want to use our tax money to educate and build a healthy middle class. For history has shown that countries with a strong middle class are also the strongest economically and socially. Progressivism has, at its core, the core idea of providing equal opportunities for everybody. That's the kind of country I want to live in. I don't think I'm alone. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing that comes to me. How is it that Arthur or any progressive can actually stand up before us and make the argument that the intention of conservatives is to starve little children? That the intention of conservatives is to bring us back to the dark satanic mills of the 19th century. That the intention of conservatives is to drive us down and to drag their feet in terms of anything of value or anything of use to human beings. There's no reason for that. It is because progressivism is the sea we are all swimming in, and they don't get a chance to look at themselves and see what there is out there as an opposition, because it doesn't have, until recently, a voice. That's the reason, not because any of those things are true. If you want to read Adam Smith, you need to read not just The Wealth of Nations, but The Theory of Moral Sentiments. Adam Smith was first of all a moral philosopher, and he was advancing an entire concept and theory of how things move forward, and it was not laissez-faire capitalism. He always understood, and Friedrich Hayek in the modern period developed these ideas. A brilliant economist, probably the most important economist of the 20th century. How many non-conservatives even have heard his name? So we swim in this milieu. And the milieu is the dominance by the progressive worldview of what? Of the media, of the mainstream media, of all the major channels, of NPR, of PBS, of CBS, of the Los Angeles Times, of the New York Times, of the Boston Globe, of the Chicago Tribune, of the Washington Post. It goes on and on and on. And what is there expressing the conservative side? Fox News and Talk Radio. And that's new. That has only just begun to emerge. So, what do we really see going on here with the progressives? We see this progressive agenda actually becomes a form of, take your pick, crony capitalism, or the beginnings of social democracy, or moderate socialism. And so in the last election, check it out on Google, 19 of the wealthiest zip codes in America went for guess who? Obama. Guess who raised more money from Wall Street? Obama. Interesting. Why is that? Because there is a privileged elite, and this elite thinks it knows better for the masses, who are, you know, xenophobic, homophobic, racist, nationalist, a bunch of yahoos somewhere in the middle of the country. This is a child's version. Why can they have it? They can have it only because they live in a reverberating chamber in which all they do is hear it back and forth from one to another. And if anyone should ever get off the reservation, they are immediately trounced. And there is a reservation. And in fact, there is a plantation. And that plantation has to do with what has happened to the African American community. A community that I've done a good deal of work on, particularly in my younger years, went to jail around the civil rights struggle and all of that. And I've watched this very carefully. I've watched the formation of the plantation. And how does it work? It's all about the state. Here's what happens. African Americans get into a situation of needing welfare. Welfare is handed out. The welfare privileges the single family. If the father's not around, more welfare money. The black family starts to disintegrate. The black family was 85% had a male in the household until the 1940s. This is not a Republican ascendancy that has created this. This is the welfare state that has created that. So you have this dependent part here. Then you find government workers. And there's a disproportionate number of African Americans working for the government. So you have the state becoming the new plantation. Plantations never really work unless you have enforcers. So you have the Al Sharptons and you have the Jesse Jacksons. And if another black should speak up, they have to be excluded. People like Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell, probably the most important historian and sociologist in America today living. His work is so rich. Thomas Sowell, African American. Who's heard of him? What schools treat his books? Very few. Clarence Thomas. Bill Cosby spoke up. And what did they all speak about? They all said, look, There is no end game for our people until we develop self-governing principles, self-responsibility, discipline. That is what is going to bring us out of this condition. As long as we're playing the dependency game from our side and the assuaging of white liberal guilt on the other side, it's a plantation. The plantation that just replaced Jim Crow, which replaced slavery. Thank you very much, Democratic Party. Thank you very much, every city in America of any important size. Whose administrations are running those cities, and where is the crisis in education today? Why is it that a film like Waiting for Superman, speaking of discipline, that's time. You won't see Waiting for Superman at the Academy Awards, even though it's the best documentary in the year.
You know, let's just be frank. We all live in an echo chamber. I mean, Fox News is an echo chamber. You know, I mean, a really monosyllabic echo chamber. So, I mean, and I would agree that many progressives live in their echo chamber. That's probably why we're here today, to try to get out of our echo chambers and try to hear something else. You know, I just want to clarify a couple things. I actually agree with a couple things you said, Mark.
Stick around.
But I don't agree with this idea that, see, you're trying to hang on the progressives, this idea that we want to engineer everything, and that we want to, you know, figure it all out, and that we're an elite few that are going to tell everybody how to live their life. Actually, as a progressive, I don't believe that. I don't want to tell anybody how to live their life. And I actually don't want a big government telling me how to live my life. What I want is a level playing field. I want access. I want people that are born without access to be given a leg up so they have access. Not in a dependency sort of way. Because, I mean, I agree with Mark. I think welfare and dependency and engendering sort of the thing that has happened to the African American community, I agree with that. It hasn't helped. But there are programs that actually do help, and that help in terms of just setting up the game so that it's fair, so that people have access to it. And I think that that's what progressivism is really about. You're trying to, I mean, it's an interesting tactic. It's a good debating tactic to try to kind of put me in this sort of limousine liberal kind of, you know, take me for a ride down that road. But I'm not a limousine liberal, and you know, it's just old style liberalism is as dead as the new style conservatism is in terms of its ideas. Your ideas are dead. I mean, they're just dead. They're alive in here, but you know, progressivism isn't about setting up a new welfare system or giving away hard-earned money from people that earn it and giving it to a bunch of people that are doing nothing. You know, real progressives believe that what you want to do is just simply create a level playing field and then allow people to enter that level playing field and rise as high as they can given their ability and their desire. Well, that's capitalism, you know? And what we want to do is we want to take the money that we collect in taxes and plow it back into the system so that it creates that level field. You know, I don't actually want to collect any more taxes. I wouldn't raise taxes. I think 39% if we let Bush's tax cuts expire, that's plenty for a high-end tax thing.